What's up, YouTube? I'm back. Today is Monday. I already made one YouTube video today about video games. It seemed like it might be well received, so it's 50-50 if I even make a video about anime, what anime should be made into movies or television series. But this one's going to be one for the men. Ladies, you're welcome to watch. And then in tomorrow's video, I'm going to make another video about women. I haven't decided what the title's going to be. It might be talking about BBW women. It might be talking about older women from the valley, or like we'll try to come up with some catchy, um, creative title. This one is going to be called Sex Game Old Chad versus New Chad, or I might entitle it, or I might switch it. I might put Sex Game New Chad versus Old Chad. So we're kind of going to go ahead and break it down, the math and science on the name Chad. So this video is for men from the ages of 18 to 50 years of age. So it don't matter if you're a black man, a white man, a Mexican man, Asian, Indian, or Samoan man. Men in general, okay? We're putting down the age group. Because I don't want no one to say, oh man, he made the video for people that's in their teens and 20s and 30s. What about us? I'm in my 40s. I'm in my 50s. So, I don't want people talking about I'm biased and things of that nature. And I probably might make a sequel for women. Because I don't want no women talking about, oh, he giving men all the advice. Because I made like at least 4 videos now that's advice for men and for women. But this video is for men because there are some men who can't let go of the hatred, the anger, the resentment, the discontempt for Chad. Tomorrow's video is going to be, you know, I guess I'm going to call it new Barbie versus old Barbie. So, ladies, this is going to be for the men. And if time allows, if the sun don't go down, I'll turn around and make a video just for women. And then the men can watch, okay, ladies? So this one's for the men. The next video, I promise you, ladies, the next video is going to be for women, okay? Alright. Now, there comes a time in life when some men say to themselves, when is it my time to be in the spotlight? When is it my time to kick ass, take names, and rock the mic and rock the house down? That's a term they had in the 70s or in the 80s. You hear it in those old school rap songs. You hear them old sayings in movies, television shows, commercials, cartoons. A lot of times, I like to identify it as sports. That's why every time I make these videos, I always take something from basketball and football and try to tell the stories of some of my favorite athletes. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Shaquille O'Neal, Tom Brady. Not just Tom Brady. There's Deion Primetime Sanders. There's Jerry Rice. There's Terrell Owens, and the names go on and on. And all these names all have one thing in common. They were the Chads and Tyrones and Brads, of their respectable sports. And we can even throw in professional wrestling, right? Like you look at someone like Bret Hart, who was a professional wrestler for 20 years, right? 5-time WWE champion, 2-time WCW heavyweight champion, won the Intercontinental twice, won the tag titles twice, got put in the Hall of Fame, comes from a big, huge wrestling family. And Bret Hart told the story of how he got into his prime in professional wrestling. And Bret Hart talked about wanting to be the man in the spotlight. He talked about how he had to wrestle guys like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and Macho Man Randy Savage to get them to pass the torch. Because at those times, there were the 3 top stars in the industry. Hulk Hogan never gave Bret Hart the torch. Let's be honest here. Bret Hart did 22 years of professional wrestling. Hulk Hogan never passed the torch to Bret Hart. Let's see. Ric Flair was one of those wrestlers that helped Bret Hart win a championship just to get him started, but it wasn't until Bret Hart and Ric Flair faced each other in WCW that Ric Flair would pass Bret Hart the torch. Macho Man Randy Savage was a guy who made Bret Hart look good in tag team matches. They wrestled for the IC title, but Macho Man Randy Savage kinda would only he would share it with Bret Hart, but then there's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, so yeah, there was a conflict there. It wasn't until Bret Hart wrestled Roddy Piper, God rest his soul, that Roddy Piper was the one who passed the torch to Bret Hart. And Roddy Piper told Bret Hart, "You're going to become one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all times." And Bret Hart believed Roddy Piper. They were friends for like at least 25 years. You know, Bret Hart would watch all of his matches, and Roddy Piper watched Bret Hart's matches. So Bret Hart would wrestle three guys, but it was Roddy Piper who passed the torch to Bret Hart. When it was time for Bret Hart to pass the torch, there were other guys coming up. You know, Bret Hart wrestled The Undertaker, but Undertaker didn't get the torch from Bret Hart. Because at the time, they agreed Undertaker was young and they weren't ready for Undertaker to get the torch. There was Stone Cold Steve Austin, who Bret Hart had great matches with, but would not pass the torch. It wasn't until Bret Hart faced Shawn Michaels in 1996 at WrestleMania 12 for the championship. Bret was the champion, and Shawn Michaels had won his second Royal Rumble. See, Shawn Michaels lost the 1995 Royal Rumble to Daddy Cool Diesel, whose real name is Kevin Nash. And then a year later in 1996, Shawn Michaels won his second Royal Rumble. You know, he eliminated British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith and earned another shot at the champion. And this Bret Hart at WrestleMania 12. And when Shawn Michaels won the championship, the torch had been passed. It had been passed from Bret Hart to Shawn Michaels. And if you go further back, the torch was passed from Hulk Hogan to Ric Flair. Ric Flair kind of gave it to Bret Hart. Then it went to Macho Man Randy Savage. Then Bret Hart challenged Macho Man Randy Savage. Savage decided to have his matches with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And then Bret Hart wrestled Roddy Piper, and Roddy Piper gave the torch to Bret Hart. Bret Hart gave it to Shawn Michaels. But when it was time for Shawn Michaels to pass the torch, Shawn Michaels would pass the torch to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because nobody wanted to give Stone Cold the passing of the torch. So Stone Cold ended up getting it. And when it was time for Stone Cold to give up the torch, he didn't give it to Brock Lesnar. He gave it to Dwayne Johnson, better known as The Rock. And when The Rock had the torch, and when The Rock had to retire from wrestling, The Rock decided to do what Stone Cold didn't do. Give the torch to Brock Lesnar. When Brock Lesnar had to pass the torch, Brock Lesnar left, and John Cena ended up being the guy to come into the game. And then between John Cena and Randy Orton, whenever John Cena got hurt, John Cena gave the torch to Randy Orton. Whenever Randy Orton got hurt, Randy gave it to John Cena. And when they were both out, they gave it to Batista. And when Batista was injured, Batista gave it back to them. See, there was this evolving door that every time you turn around in professional wrestling, the torch always got passed. Now, I know some professional wrestling fans gonna say, well, John Cena hold on to it for almost 13, 14 years. That's true. There were other guys who tried to take the torch from John Cena. Edge, CM Punk, Triple H, The Big Show. There was a lot of guys that came in and tried to take the torch from John Cena. But ultimately, John Cena did give the torch. to someone else. Now, a lot of men are probably saying, Alex, get to the point of the video. The point in the YouTube video, gentlemen, is that when you become a Chad, when you become a Tyrone, when you become a Brad, you have to pass the championship belt. You have to pass the torch on to the next guy. Not necessarily the next generation, but the next guy behind you. There's a big difference between the next generation, passing the torch to the next generation, or the next guy behind you. You could be from the same generation. Like, you look at The Rock and Randy Orton, right? They're both second generation superstars in professional wrestling. If some people might say, I don't watch professional wrestling, okay, so let's take wrestling out and let's throw in football. When Joe Montana won 4 championships and went to 4 Super Bowls, it was supposed to be the passing of the torch from Joe Montana to Steve Young. And there was a problem there. Okay? Same thing with Brett Favre. When Aaron Rodgers came in at quarterback, you were supposed to see Brett Favre pass the torch to Aaron Rodgers. And you see the same thing when Tom Brady came in. The quarterback at the time was supposed to pass the torch to Tom Brady. Every 5 or 10 years in professional sports, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, I don't care if you say professional wrestling's fake. I'm talking about a situation. You're supposed to pass the torch to the guy that's behind you so he can be the breakout superstar. And you see, the best way to explain this is 50 Cent's rap song. Now, I know 50 Cent's rap song is about 15, 16 years old now, but 50 Cent had this one rap song called Wankster where he described in the song that the Chads and the Tyrones and the Brads that he went to high school with was the man. And then when he became rich and famous and became a multi-millionaire 10 times over, these guys were broke. These guys were no longer getting the super hot chicks. They were now just bums off the street. And that's supposed to be a motivational video for you men who are graduated high school or just graduated college, just got into the workforce. Some of y'all got your first job, your second job, or your third job, or your fourth job. Or if you got 5 jobs or 7 jobs or whatever the case may be. This video is to give you some motivation and some encouragement. Now, let's get to the point of the video now. See, in this video, you have to understand that when men are chads, right? A lot of times you probably didn't get the spotlight in high school and college. And I think the term that they have is called a late bloomer. Now, that means you didn't shine in high school and college. You might have played high school basketball and football and baseball. You might have played college basketball, college football, and college baseball. You might have played your sports in high school and college, but you never got the spotlight. At least 5 people got the spotlight. You never got it. Same thing if you had your first job, your second job, or your third job. There was at least 5 other guys that are Chads, Tyrones, and Brads that always got the spotlight. But then something happened. Something funny happened. Something that always happens every 10 to 15 years. Fate steps in. The power of the Most High steps in and grabs the spotlight like this and takes it away from the Chads and the Tyrones and the Brads that you went to high school and college with and say, all right, your time's up. It's like that John Cena rap song, your time's up, my time's now. Stop shining on me because I'm shining now. Stop hating because I'm the franchise. My time is now. I'm not going to, sing out the whole song of John Cena, but you should know what his rap song's all about. It's about someone refusing to pass the torch and give that person the spotlight. Now, you might say, Alex, what the hell does this have to do with the opposite sex? What does this have to do with girls? What does this have to do with the opposite sex? What it has to do with the girls is that the old Chad, a lot of times, and I say the old Chad, is very selfish and self-centered. He likes to have sex with multiple women. He likes to have sex with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I'm doing the LeBron James. 7, 8, 9, 10 women, right? because he sees it in the movies, the television shows, the rap songs, the rock songs. So a lot of these Chads like to have sex with multiple women. So when he was in high school and college, he would take up all the good-looking women for himself because that's what Chad does. And when he gets into his 20s or even his 30s, that Chad does not feel like sharing at all. And then what happens is when it's 10, 15, 20 years later, he's no longer Chad. He's now referred to as old Chad, meaning he still physically, sexually attracts beautiful, attractive women, but he's an old Chad now. That don't mean he can't get no girls. What it means is it ain't what the game. The game has changed. There's a term. It's called the changing of the guard. All of a sudden, here comes the new Chad. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's athletic, he's more physically sexually attractive. He gets all the women's attention at work, or in college, or at the gym, or at the nightclub, or the bar, or on the road. He gets all of the female attention. And the old Chad becomes jealous and envious of the new Chad because he's pulling all the girls. He's getting all the phone numbers, the emails, the text messages. He's getting asked out to lunch and dinner. He's the one taking the girls out for a cup of coffee in the morning. And the old Chad misses that. Now, how you can tell when he's an old Chad? When you hear old Chad start talking about stories that are 10, 15, 20 years ago, or extreme cases, 25 to 30 years ago, you'll hear them say, man, back in the day, I was the Mac. I was the player. I was the man. And you'll be looking at the old Chad like, bruh, this ain't high school no more. This ain't college no more. It ain't your time. It's my time. And this is where the old Chad and the new Chad clash, like the Clash of the Titans. This is where they clash. Because the old Chad is still selfish and self-centered. And the new Chad is like, look, I didn't get the spotlight in high school and college. I had to work my ass off 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and nothing was given to me for free. Everything I had to get, I had to work to get. I had to work 3 to 4 times harder to get it. And the old Chad forgets once upon a time he had to put in that same effort. So the old Chad and the new Chad, they clash. So new Chad starts getting the same level of attention as the old Chad used to get. But the problem is the old Chad don't want to accept the fact that it's time for him to move out of the spotlight and let the new Chad into the spotlight. It's kind of like if you look at the animal kingdom, right? Old lion versus young lion, right? The old lion feels like I've been in the game for 20 years. I'm not moving an inch. I'm not budging. I ain't doing anything. And the young lion be like, you gonna move because I'm gonna show you what's happening. I'm gonna show you what time it is. Think of the conflict of new Chad versus old Chad as young lion versus old lion. You see it in sports, you see it in the animal kingdom, and when it comes to the opposite sex, what are you seeing? You're seeing a young Chad that I call new Chad having to displease his pleasure because old Chad doesn't want to move out of the hot chair. So sorry. So you see that. And I'm trying to explain in this video for the men why that is. And you see sometimes in the game, you're going to see at least four, I'm going to say about 3 or 4 new Chads taking on one old Chad. Because this one old Chad don't want to move out of the hot seat and let someone get the spotlight. Now, I'm not saying you need to have sex with 5 or 10 women. What I'm trying to say in this video is that I was inspired by the story of young lion versus old lion, and when you look back at my other videos called "There's Two Different Chads," part one was talking about what happens when the guy gets all the girls, and then part two talks about the second Chad. There's 2 different types of Chads. And this one is like a part 3. So this is like the third part of the series. So this is part 3. And basically the logistics of it, what happens to Chad? Because some guys think Chad forever gets women. No, there comes a time where Chad stops getting women. There comes a time, he loses his house, he loses his apartment, he loses his car. You know how you can tell when he's an old Chad? When he starts saying back in the day in high school and college, he's an old Chad. When you hear him say, oh man, back in the day, back in high school and college, you couldn't even get no girl like that. That's when you know he's an old Chad. When he starts making those reference. Or he'll say, give me $5 to wash your car. Or give me $10 so I can go give me a pack of cigarettes. Translation, old Chad, Tyrone, and Brad. These guys don't forever smash women, forever. In real life. And eventually the Most High comes in, I'm talking about God, and he snatches the spotlight from the old Chad and gives it to the new Chad. So this video is to like motivate you, to inspire you. That's kind of why I made the title. So when you see the title and it's called Sex Game, New Chad versus Old Chad, it's part 3 in my series of Chad to let you guys know that no, Chad don't forever get all the hot chicks. Yeah, he may get all the hot girls in high school and college in his 20s, but somewhere in his 30s or 40s or 50s, it stops. And then he starts coming up with a bunch of excuses on why he can't get the girl. That's the whole point of the video. Now I gotta do the female version. Because I know there are going to be some women saying, hey, you gave men advice. When you going to give us some women some advice? So I got to make it fair and impartial.